In today's episode of The Pitch, we talk about how the Halos' prayers are answered, what went down with the Marlins, with them making big headlines, and also Chris Paul. That's next on The Pitch. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Pitch. I'm your host, as always, John Fox, alongside here with Mike Peps Peroni and Mitch Sabatelli. Now, last year was the Red Sox dominating the winter meetings, but yesterday was a pretty epic day in sports for LA. Oh, yeah. We'll start with Albert Pujols, leaving St. Louis, signs with the Halos.
Yeah, it's a reported 10-year, $254 million contract for Pujols as he finally gets paid, moves out of St. Louis. Look, the Angels it's been a while since they made a big splash. It's been since 2003 when they last made a huge free agent signing in Vladimir Guerrero. They wanted to pull the trigger last year with Carl Crawford, with Tony Reagans. He's out of here, but new GM Jerry DiPoto comes in and makes an immediate splash. I think he came in October, and they get a huge middle-of-the-order bat right at the end of his prime. I mean, right in the middle of his prime for 10 years to come. And Albert Pujols, the best hitter in the game today. And arguably, when it's all said and done, could be a top 4 hitter of all time. Yeah. Put him out there with Bonds, Williams, and, you know, Gehrig, Ruth.
His first season not hitting 300, and he batted .299.
Yeah, that was a horrible season.
That must have been terrible, .299. But big move for the Angels. I mean, they definitely needed that. They already have, like, good amount of veterans with, like, Abreu, Hunter, and those guys on the team. But, I mean, it's good to pick up.
Guys in the outfield.
And they got, well, I mean, they have them too, obviously, and Kendrick is a bat in the order too. I mean, it's good to have Pujols there, big power threat, and it's kind of like a slap to the Cardinals, though, unfortunately for them, because it was hearing about the Marlins, all the Marlins making all these moves, and then the Angels kind of seemed like, from what I've heard, it kind of came out of like nowhere really that he was like talking to them.
No, listen, this isn't a LeBron James type move.
It's not a douche move.
No, I'm not saying that. LeBron James went to Miami for the chance at a ring and for the money and for all the fame with Dwayne Wade. Albert Pujols is going to the Angels. If he wasn't going to stay with the Cardinals, I think the Angels are a perfect organization for him.
Yes.
Class act organization. Mike Scioscia is one of the best coaches in the game.
Very good.
And he has a terrific lineup around him. Filled with veterans right now with Torrey Hunter, like Pep said with Vernon Wells. And now they got these up-and-coming stars like Mark Trumbo, the first baseman, who already had a big year last year, and Mike Trout, who everybody's talking about, could be one of the best outfielders for a long time over there in the Angels organization. And look, Pujols, arguably, he's the machine.
Yes.
The greatest swing in the game, in my opinion, right now. The guy just puts fans in the seats, and that's what the big thing is. He's a marketable guy. Yeah. He's going to put those fans in the seats, and I think the Angels may have overtaken the Dodgers as the team to beat in LA.
I just don't want my words to be like misconstrued. I know you. It was kind of good to tie into that. But what I was really saying was like, for the Cardinals, it's obviously sucks for them the fact that they lost him. I wasn't saying he did. I wasn't saying it was like a jerk move.
There's Stan Musial.
It was just a fact. It's just a fact that at least. It's kind of good they did it like this. At least it wasn't like televised like LeBron. LeBron was kind of like, I'm going to Miami. It's like, wow, you just slapped everyone in the face. At least Pujols didn't do that.
He brought that charity with him. He
brought 2 championships. LeBron never brought the championship.
A 2-hour special for him to say, I'm going to Miami. That's all he had to say. But, and he had to make a big deal about his talents and everything.
And now he's on the news. Everyone hates him. So it's
listen,
what should he do?
I can make the argument that I thought Albert Pujols was going to get $30 million a year, and for him to only give it $25 million a year for 10 years.
In this economy, you're getting $254 million. I don't want to hear it. But I don't care if you're God yourself.
But A-Rod got a $30 million a year.
But A-Rod's an idiot. But Pujols isn't an idiot.
He was 32, and now
he's still an idiot.
A year younger and played much less seasons.
And look what he's doing.
And you know what's good? Hey, listen. You know what I like about Albert Pujols going to the Angels is if he stayed in the Cardinals, he's 31 years old right now. If he went for 10 years, he'd been drafted for first base up until his 40s. Now he can move to DH, and the Angels got himself a solid DH come 2016.
That's great, yeah.
Because I think that's a perfect move for them. And, this lineup, I don't know if they're Texas Rangers type ready, but with that rotation, they can move on to that.
They're ready to compete with the Rangers for that spot.
Well, no, I'm talking about lineup. I'm talking about lineup worthy.
Yeah.
Overall team, I think they might be have eclipsed the Rangers here. But
in an AL West that's usually weak for the most part, don't we have to really compete with the team like the Rangers for the most part? I mean, say these.
Well, I mean, again, the Houston Astros too. That's some serious fire.
Oh yeah, true.
But no, that's going to be a tough rivalry. I think that's going to be a good rivalry for years to come. With the Rangers, who's still pretty young, and the Angels. I think the Rangers Angels. But we got to talk about the next guy.
Yeah, well, they're pretty pissed off because the Angels just bagged C.J. Wilson. I mean, what's your thoughts? I know. What's your thoughts on him and their rotation now?
Yeah, but an hour later after the Pujols news broke, Angels got C.J. Wilson, took him right from the Rangers, and it's addition by subtraction. He goes away from the Rangers rotation. Now the Rangers have nobody in that rotation. They got to throw Neftali Feliz over there. Now you got C.J. Wilson over to the Angels rotation. That Angels rotation is deadly right now. Jared Weaver, runner-up in the Cy Young Award. Dan Herron, Irvin Santana. Now C.J. Wilson. C.J. Wilson already knows the AL West. He knows all his hitters.
He knows the Rangers.
And now he has to pitch. Yeah, now he has to pitch in the Angels ballpark, which is usually a pitcher's ballpark. So I think that's a good move. Look, it's a great place down there in LA, and like I said, with all the Dodgers problems, I think the Angels have eclipsed the Dodgers over there in LA, and I think for a solid 10 years or so, this team's going to be a force to reckon with.
I think it's only fitting that they took him from the Rangers because the team that couldn't close for the championship 2 years in a row is now getting slapped in the face for not doing so. Because they just got their starter taken right from their grasp against their rivals.
This is the
like
second year in a
Red
row.
Sox move, something like that.
This is the second year in a
really
row.
Bitter. It's going to turn into a bitter rivalry for sure.
This is the second year in a row where the Texas Rangers have made it to a World Series and lost their ace.
It's
if you remember, Cliff Lee went to the Phillies last year, and now they lose C.J. Wilson here. That's a devastating loss.
They're not having it. They want to win. They'll go to the teams that will win.
I thought they were going to. You know what? I think C.J. Wilson, $77 million. I think he could have come in a little bit more. I think Texas Rangers should have stepped up.
I think he wanted to get out of there while he could with the team that looks like the biggest threat to take it, even like get there next year, maybe win.
Cliff Lee at his age, I think that was a little bit of a gamble for the Rangers to take. I think C.J. Wilson, he belongs to the Rangers uniform. But like I said, I think C.J. Wilson, the Rangers didn't want to pay him.
Fell asleep in the struggle. Deserved to lose him.
Angels gonna be good.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to the other LA team making people talk yesterday, the Lakers.
Yeah.
Now, Mitch, would you like to discuss what happened?
I will discuss. All right, there was a big thing. Is Chris Paul leaving? Everybody knows Chris Paul's leaving because the Hornets are a dysfunctional franchise right now.
Oh, yes.
And there was 3 teams in the mix. It was the Clippers, Warriors, and Celtics. Celtics were going to package. Danny Ainge was doing everything in his power to trade Rajon Rondo, picks, and possibly Jeff Green to New Orleans and bring back Chris Paul. And he was going to do that without the assurance that he was going to sign an extension. That was a 1-year rental to have one more run in a championship with the Big Three. And that deal almost looked pretty good, but the Hornets were looking around.
They didn't want to come to us.
The Hornets were looking at the Warriors for Steph Curry. Warriors didn't want to give up Steph Curry. They said they would give up Monte Ellis. That didn't go through. Clippers didn't want to give up Eric Gordon or DeAndre Jordan. You know they're not going to give up Blake Griffin, so they have nothing to take. And it looked like all signs put in the Celtics. Last minute, the Lakers swoop in there, and they get a deal done. And Chris Paul looked like he was headed to the Lakers, but Dan Gilbert, the biggest baby in the NBA right now, proves the NBA is a fraud right now. Just because he was sad about his LeBron and how he's a small market team, and he would go out and make the trades for the Antoine Jameson. Now that all of a sudden he's a small market team and he loses his big guy. Yeah. Now he has to cry and start writing letters to David Stern, and David Stern nixes the deal because of the new CBA collective bargaining agreement. They want to put complete fair balance between the lower market teams and the big market teams.
Owners and
David Stern wanted to stick to his word, and then he nixed the deal. But I don't like it.
Owners and stuff finally taking control. I'm glad. These players think they can run this entire league, bitching about 0.5% more and wasting 2 months of every fan's time, which is why I believe that no one should buy full season packs to all these teams' games.
And I just
it's ridiculous. It's babyish. You're getting paid millions of dollars. Yeah. People out there are starving. I want you to shut your mouth and play the damn game.
Well, it's really true.
And Dan Gilbert, really good for you, Dan Gilbert. I'm glad he did that. It just shows that players have too much say in this whole thing. and that the owners should finally take control. And good, Dan Gilbert bitched, and good, he got what he wanted.
All right, I hate the Lakers more than anybody, but if I was just a Lakers fan, which I hate even mentioning right there, and I was going to say, and this is similar to the Adrian Gonzalez thing. Adrian Gonzalez almost went to the Red Sox, then there was a little snag. Eventually got the deal done. This is a little bit bigger snag. If I'm a Lakers fan, I'm absolutely pissed at David Stern, Dan Gilbert, everybody here. You know, they were giving up a lot. It wasn't like they were just giving up a couple picks here. They were giving up Lamar Odom, Pau Gasol. That's two big names. Pau Gasol is one of the best power forwards in the game. Lamar Odom's arguably the best bench player in the game. They bring in Chris Paul. Their power forward at this legitimate time is Derek Character. But the big thing, I wouldn't even be that pissed if Chris Paul went over there with the Lakers. The big thing is, with Chris Paul going to the Lakers, that also brings in Dwight Howard, and Dwight Howard's going to come in here. The Lakers can easily go to Orlando and say, listen, you're never going to sign Dwight Howard. He wants to leave. He's always already wanted to go to the Nets. And listen, we'll give you Andrew Bynum and 2 first-round picks for Dwight Howard. That's the best way.
Here's the thing. I think Dan Gilbert's not just a baby. I think he was probably thinking this in the back of his mind. If he's so stupid, he would have never snagged LeBron in the first place. But I think it was a smart move for him because I bet he knows exactly what the Lakers are trying to do. The Lakers are always up to no good over there in the West.
Dan Gilbert
so
even wrote that in his letter.
Exactly. He's
Dan Gilbert, I think
he's planning to get Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard. Whatever I can do to stop that, I will stop that immediately if I can.
So you're glad that Dan Gilbert
I'm glad that Dan Gilbert did that.
You don't think that's a douche move?
It's not a douche move. The players have had enough to say and bitching and moaning the season. It's time for the owners to step in and finally do something. And Dan Gilbert is. He's tired of getting pissed, and he wants to see someone else get screwed besides him for once.
I mean, I hear you. I hear that, but if a team, it's not their fault that the team accepted the deal. Listen, the problem is the Hornets are owned by 29 owners from the NBA. They have no owner in that team. So every one of those owners have to agree with that deal. And there's no way that every one of those owners are going to agree. Dan Gilbert and Mark Cuban were the driving forces saying that they don't want to do that deal. Good. And now they're going to, but the only thing is right now, there's news saying that Chris Paul is going to protest as much as they can.
Protest as much as you want. You have your stupid money bonus.
It looks like Chris Paul may be a Laker within the next couple of days. So.
Well, good for him. Baby gets what he wants.
And the bad thing is, Dwight Howard has announced that he wants to be with the Nets.
The rich player wins again.
And the Knicks are trying to get Tyson Chandler. So if the Knicks get Tyson Chandler and the Nets are trying to get Dwight Howard, they need to get this deal done quick so then they can try to get Dwight Howard before the next.
See, this is the stuff that pisses me off, though. I'm going to say this is a football reference. Chris Johnson bitches and moans and finally starts playing in the last 2 weeks of the season. And Matt Forte, who decided to take a pay cut and then play for the Chicago Bears and do better than Chris Johnson, is hurt now and has fought his ass off to be in the spot where he is.
I want to see
Chris Johnson just a shame that these players are such little immature babies about all this money crap. You're making enough money than the world, so shut up.
It's a little rant there, but yeah,
no, it's ridiculous. There's people like Matt Forte to get injured for the season. They work their butt off the whole season, not bitching and moaning about getting extra money and all this other crap.
Matt Forte is a free agent this year too.
So what?
I'm just saying. But
he took a cut. He took a cut for the team.
One thing before we move on, everyone is talking about how Chris Paul and Dwight Howard, they're going to be the next duo, similar to Wade and LeBron, to team up and become this new super team. But everybody's forgetting one thing. There's one other big name player out there that's a potential free agent, and that's Deron Williams. Dwight Howard sees this, that New Jersey's moving to Brooklyn. He wants to jump at this quick. He wants to be the face of of the Brooklyn area. If he goes to Brooklyn, that's almost just as good as teaming up with the Lakers, and he's not going to have any spotlight over there. Dwight Howard loves his spotlight. He's Superman for the reason. If he goes over there to L.A. with Chris Paul and Kobe Bryant, he's going to have no spotlight. Take it over to New Jersey. Deron Williams is to demand the spotlight. He knows what it is to be a number 2 with Carlos Boozer over there. Team up with Deron Williams. I think that's a smart way to go there, Dwight Howard.
I don't even care anymore. This is ridiculous.
All right, going briefly back to baseball, winter meetings for a second. Let's talk about Miami. They have cash to spend. They lock up a few big names. Who do they take in?
Yeah, the Miami Marlins. They got that new big stadium. They're making a big thing. They got that new logo that looks horrible right now. But so they already have Mike Stanton. They have Hanley Ramirez. They already have a solid team, Josh Johnson. They got this cash to spend. So they go out there and get Jose Reyes, the best shortstop in the game, in my opinion. The only problem is they already have a top 3 shortstop in Hanley Ramirez, so Hanley Ramirez is all pissed.
Another position?
Yeah, no, the Marlins assumed that he was going to move to third base.
Yeah, that's what he says he wants more money now, right?
He wants more money now. And there's a big problem. Everyone assumes that shortstop's a harder position to play. You go to shortstop, go to third base. But you got to have quick reflexes to play at third base with that hot corner. When A-Rod moved to third base, he had some serious problems. He had some balls going right by his head.
Though, too. I mean, I understand he had problems, but
if I'm Hanley Ramirez, I'm pissed at this. I know they were trying to get Jose Reyes to take Albert Pujols, and they almost got Albert Pujols. But not only that, they get Jose Reyes, and then
he doesn't have much to complain about. He hasn't really been putting up that much.
How much is Hanley Ramirez making? Do you know roughly?
Right now, grateful that the Marlins actually got more talent.
14 million.
I think it's. You guys double check that. I want to say 14.
14 a year.
I might be off, but I want to say 14.
14 a year. I think Hanley Ramirez can do okay by moving
grow
over.
Up.
A couple extra feet.
What all these players need to do is grow up and learn that if you can't get your way, then that's life, and learn to deal with it.
Who's Hanley Ramirez to be acting like this anyways? He just batted.
He did crap
last
season.
He pulled shit last year with the Marlins. Okay.
Can I just say one thing though? If you're in the Marlins there, and you already know that you locked up into this big deal, and you know the Marlins are going nowhere, and you know you're going to be
Who
switching.
says they're going nowhere?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about last year. I'm talking about last year.
Oh, okay, last year.
Okay, so if you're Hanley Ramirez, you just signed this big deal. You know you're locked up there for a long term. You know the Marlins aren't going to compete with the Phillies, who just got that super team.
Yeah.
If I'm Hanley Ramirez, I'm probably going to have an off year. You know, with knowing that you're going to lose, that you're going to have a lost cause this season.
Well, if you're playing professional sports, I don't care if you're going to lag it or not. Get your friggin' butt out there and play.
Okay, but you got to see where he's coming from.
Harder.
You got to see where he's coming from.
It's coming from lazy people who don't.
Hanley Ramirez, if you look at fantasy baseball, which is clearly based on stats. Hanley Ramirez was going...
That's why it's called fantasy.
Yeah, okay, but he was going #1 of all players last year because he was so good. Now, that was when he had a solid team with the Miguel Cabrera type players.
Yeah.
You know, before they all shifted out of here. Now he was a sole man. He had that big contract. He had nobody around him. He couldn't have the runs because nobody could drive him in. He was bound to have an off year. And now, after he has that off year, the Miami owner goes out there and get Jose Reyes, who arguably was #3 to start the season last year at shortstop. So I can take Tulo and Hanley in front of Jose before last year.
But if you
Jose is better. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. But if you think about it, you should be like, damn, wow, for all these years, no one's really come to Florida, and like we've really not had much talent. Be grateful though. I'd still be grateful that they picked up someone like Jose Reyes. They're at least willing to work with Hanley and maybe move him to third. Maybe because he was lagging last season, I think, you know what, maybe he wants to move to third instead of short. Maybe he doesn't have to move around as much. Jose Reyes is young.
We haven't covered two things, though. Miami also, I like what you're saying, Peps, but they also get Mark Burley and Heath Bell. They got the most dominant closer in the NL last year in Heath Bell. That's a huge addition. Automatically take out that 9th inning, and you're going to be going up against those Philly bats. You're going to have somebody close up the game. And also Mark Burley. He's been a solid, very underrated southpaw for the White Sox for quite some time now. He goes over to the NL East, and he plays in this new ballpark. And now he doesn't have to be the number one guy like he has been in the White Sox. Now Josh Johnson can step up and be that number one guy.
Yeah.
Mark Burley can come in there and be the veteran #2.
Good.
I like the Marlins there, and I also like them because they lost to Albert Pujols. I look at a guy who's going to have some big cash coming his way in Princefield.
They got a good outfield.
They do.
If they get that massive power threat.
Young outfield. They
Mike
have Logan
Stanton,
Morrison,
Logan
Mike
Morrison.
Stanton, Chris Coughlin.
Who was a rookie of the year, but you know, still.
Damn.
And you got Omar and Forte there, you got John Buck. Look at a solid team.
Definitely looking brighter than future years for them.
But listen, if you get Fielder in there, right?
Nice
power. Think of this 4 guys right here. And everybody thinks Philly's solid. We're going to throw out Reyes, Hanley Ramirez, Fielder, and Mike Stanton, 1, 2, 3, 4. That may be the best 1, 2, 3, 4 in the game.
That's nice. That'll be nice.
Omar and Forte is not even bad.
He's a solid player.
But maybe, would you want to spread it out, though, a little?
Oh, yeah, you can put it.
They got to do something definitely with John Buck.
Yeah.
It seems to be like
got some pop, though.
It seems to be like the same situation for the Phillies catchers. But let's wrap this raging first part up. Up next, we got our football matchups, classic football matchups, and we have some NHL. See you there.